Greetings, fellow adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another exciting video, where we'll be shedding light on Portland Terminal Company. The Portland Terminal Company was a terminal railroad notable for its control of switching shunting activity for the Maine Central Railroad (MEC) and Boston and Maine railroads in the Maine cities of Portland, South Portland, and Westbrook. Get ready for an exciting exploration as we unravel the mysteries of history. The Maine Central Railroad (MEC) came under the control of the Boston and Maine Railroad in 1884. The New Haven Railroad secured control of them in 1907, and the Portland Terminal Company was formed in 1911 as part of the New Haven's consolidation of New England transportation facilities. Portland Terminal Company became a subsidiary of MEC while was in financial difficulty in 1914. Its activities were vital to Portland's role as a winter seaport, receiving Canadian products from the Grand Trunk Railway for export to Europe. Shipping from Portland declined sharply as Canadian exports were routed via the maritime ports of St. John, New Brunswick and Halifax, Nova Scotia following nationalization of the Grand Trunk in 1923. Exports from Portland declined from 600,000 st per year in the early years to 21,000 st per year during the worst year of the following depression. In the decade following World War II, PTM operated on 40 miles of main lines and branch tracks, 84 miles of yard tracks, and 18 miles of industry-owned tracks. PTM was acquired by Guilford Transportation Industries in 1981 and continues as CSX Corporation. Get ready to immerse yourself in the world of geography as we examine its impact and relevance. Portland occupies an Atlantic coast peninsula between Back Cove to the north and the Fall River estuary to the south. The peninsula is protected from North Atlantic swells by the islands of Casco Bay. Back Cove was too shallow for 20th century ocean commerce. Portland Harbor is the seaward portion of the Fall River estuary. South Portland occupies the southern shore of the Fall River estuary. Westbrook is inland of Portland, where the pre-railroad Cumberland and Oxford Canal provided transportation for mills using water power of the Passumpsic River. Grand Trunk Railway from Montreal entered Portland from the north via a long trestle over the mouth of Back Cove. The Grand Trunk Yard and wharves occupied the seaward end of the Portland Harbor waterfront along the north shore of the Fall River estuary. This line became the Berlin subdivision of the Canadian National Railway when the Grand Trunk was nationalized in 1923. Access to the Portland waterfront ended when the Back Cove trestle burned in 1984, and the line to Montreal was sold to a short line operator in 1989. Maine Central Railroad Portland Division from Bangor, Maine, entered Portland from the north inland of Back Cove. Maine Central Railroad Mountain Division from St. Johnsbury, Vermont, entered Westbrook from the northwest paralleling the Old Canal along the Passumpsic River. The Mountain Division was abandoned in 1983. Boston and Maine Railroad Worcester, Nashua and Portland Division from Rochester, New Hampshire, entered Westbrook from the west. The Boston and Maine discontinued passenger service in 1932 and through freight service in 1934. The line operated as the Sanford and Eastern Railroad from 1949 until abandonment in 1961. Boston and Maine Railroad Portland Division Eastern route from Boston entered South Portland from the south, and was dismantled in 1945. Boston and Maine Railroad Portland Division Western route from Boston entered South Portland from the south. Union Station had eastern and western yards along the Boston to Bangor Main line between Rigby Yard and Yard 11. The PTM assembled trains in these yards and added mail and express cars to through trains. Following a 1933 joint operating agreement between the Maine Central and the Boston and Maine, passenger trains from Bangor and points east to Boston or Worcester, Massachusetts, and points south ran through Union Station with pooled equipment like the Gull and the Flying Yankee. Other Maine Central and Boston and Maine passenger trains originated or terminated at Union Station. Grand Trunk trains originated or terminated about 2 miles east of Union Station without using Union Station. Union Station was raised in 1961. Yard 1 served PTM Wharf 1 on the Portland Harbor waterfront along the north shore of the Fall River estuary upstream of Yard 2 and downstream of Yard 8. Wharf 1 had water frontage of 1,000 foot and included a 100,000 sq warehouse for handling package cargo interchanged with ships of up to 30-foot draft. Yard 2 served Portland Harbor waterfront wharves along the north shore of the Fall River estuary upstream of the Grand Trunk wharves and downstream of Wharf 1. Yard 2 became the local interchange with the Grand Trunk Railway after 1947. Yard 3 along the original Boston and Maine Eastern Route served the South Portland waterfront of the Fall River estuary including PTM Wharf 4, the New England Shipbuilding Corporation and the Portland-Montreal Pipeline Terminal. Yard 14 tracks and less than carload LCL transfer facilities inland of Yard 1 and Yard 2. Yard 5 car storage inland of Yard 8. Yard 6 served petroleum bulk plants in South Portland north of Rigby Yard. Yard 7 served distribution warehouses and light industries along the south shore of Back Cove. Yard 7 was the interchange with the Grand Trunk Railway until the Portland Junction connection was severed during construction of a highway bridge over the mouth of Back Cove in 1947. Yard 8 served PTM Wharf 3 on the Portland Harbor waterfront along the north shore of the Fall River estuary upstream of Yard 1. Wharf 3 had water frontage of 1,500 foot designed for handling bulk commodities from ships and barges of up to 30-foot draft. PTM 1,800 30-foot USRA hopper cars carried coal from this wharf to local industries. The wharf included a storage shed for 4,000 tons of China clay transported to the Westbrook paper mill in PTM box cars. Maine Central 35,000 series USRA 50-ton, 40-foot single-sheet box cars were repainted PTM 2150 in 1956. Maine Central 4000 series 40-foot steel box cars were repainted PTM 54 in 1966. Wharf 3 was closed about 1970. Yard 8 included the first piggyback ramp served by the Maine Central Railroad. Yard 9 was the old Fall River Yard on the Mountain Division adjacent to the north shore of the Fall River estuary upstream of the Dredge Channel. Rigby Yard was enlarged to eliminate most activity in Yard 9. Yard 10 served Thompson Point shops adjacent to the Mountain Division upstream of Yard 9. Thompson Point shops built 49 flat cars, 40 box cars, 3 cabooses, a baggage RPO and a RPO smoking car for the 2-foot gauge bridge and Saco River Railroad and Sandy River and Rangi Lakes Railroad between 1912 and 1917. Yard 11 served large grocery distribution warehouses at Deering Junction where the Boston and Maine Division joined the Maine Central Main Line to Bangor. Yard 12 served the city of Westbrook including the South. D. Warren Paper Mill. 7,500 carloads originated or terminated in Westbrook in 1973. Rigby Yard. Yard 13 was built in 1922 on the former site of Rigby Park at the South Portland junction of the eastern and western routes of Boston and Maine's Portland Division. Rigby became the busiest New England rail yard north of Boston as car storage and locomotive servicing facilities were eliminated from older yards in Portland. Maine Central and Boston and Maine freight trains originated or terminated in Rigby Yard. Yard 12 became the interchange point for Sanford and Eastern trains. Blue Rock Quarry was on the Mountain Division between Westbrook and Portland. Bethlehem Steel delivered 70-ton, 40-foot PTM hopper cars 150 in 1956 to replace the old USRA hoppers for coal loading. These cars were used for ballast service as heating oil minimized coal demand. Cars 122 were fitted with side extensions for off-line wood chip loading on the Maine Central Railroad. In this part of the video, we'll be delving deeper into locomotives and analyzing its key components. Number builder type date works number notes 702 Baldwin locomotive works for 6 for 1930 61,371 X Maine Central Railroad acquired 1950 for use as a snow melter scrap 1955 801 ALCO Manchester 0601902 26,346 X Maine Central Railroad scrap 1923 802 ALCO Manchester 0601902 26,347 X Maine Central Railroad scrap 1924 803 Schenectady Locomotive Works 0601900 5,565 X Maine Central Railroad scrap 1929 804 Manchester Locomotive Works 0601899 1712 X Boston and Maine Railroad scrap 1929 805 Baldwin Locomotive Works 0601903 21,454 X Boston and Maine Railroad scrap 1929 806 Baldwin Locomotive Works 0601903 21,515 X Boston and Maine Railroad scrap 1929 807 ALCO Brooks 0601904 30,327 X Maine Central Railroad scrap 1939 808 ALCO Brooks 0601904 30,328 X Maine Central Railroad scrap 1936 809 ALCO Manchester 0601906 40,580 X Maine Central Railroad scrap 1936 810 ALCO Manchester 0601906 40,581 X Maine Central Railroad scrap 1937 811 ALCO Manchester 0601906 40,582 X Maine Central Railroad scrap 1939 820 ALCO Manchester 0601909 46,340 X Boston and Maine Railroad scrap 1936 821 ALCO Schenectady 06019 10 49,203 X Maine Central Railroad scrap 1945 822 ALCO Schenectady 06019 10 49,204 X Maine Central Railroad sold 1943 to Tudbuth Shipyard 824 ALCO Manchester 06019 12 50,737 scrap 1944 825 ALCO Manchester 06019 12 50,738 scrap 1947 826 ALCO Manchester 06019 12 50,739 scrap 1946 827 ALCO Manchester 06019 12 50,740 scrap 1945 828 ALCO Schenectady 06019 13 52,987 scrap 1950 829 ALCO Schenectady 06019 13 52,988 scrap 1950 830 ALCO Schenectady 06019 17 57,579 sold to Boston and Maine Railroad in 1951 831 ALCO Schenectady 06019 17 57,580 sold to Boston and Maine Railroad in 1951 832 ALCO Schenectady 06019 18 59,867 sold to Boston and Maine Railroad in 1951 833 ALCO Schenectady 06019 18 59,000 868 scrap 1951 834 ALCO Schenectady 060 1920 2000 202 sold to Boston and Maine Railroad in 1951 835 ALCO Schenectady 060 1920 2000 203 scrap 1950 850 Portland Company 440 1887 545 ex Maine Central Railroad scrap 1917 850 Rhode Island Locomotive Works 440 1885 1546 ex Maine Central Railroad purchased 1917 scrap 1928 851 ALCO Schenectady 080 1916 56,566 ex Boston and Maine Railroad scrap 1951 852 ALCO Schenectady 080 1916 56,567 ex Boston and Maine Railroad scrap 1951 1001 ALCO 1936 68,730 scrapped 1961 1002 ALCO 1936 68,731 scrapped 1967 1003 ALCO 1936 68,732 scrapped 1969 1004 ALCO 1938 69,071 scrapped 1973 1005 ALCO S1 1941 69,494 scrapped 1977 1006 ALCO S1 1945 73,083 sold 1976 to GE 1007 ALCO S1 1949 77,111 scrapped 1984 1008 ALCO S1 1949 77,112 sold 1981 to North Stratford Railroad 1051 ALCO S2 1941 69,565 scrapped 1982 1052 ALCO S2 1943 70,244 sold 1982 to Bay Colony Railroad 1053 ALCO S2 1946 73,902 retired 1980 1054 ALCO S2 1949 76,596 scrapped 1984 1055 ALCO S4 1950 78,416 sold 1981 to Conway Scenic Railroad and sold in 2010 to the Damask Scenic Railroad 1056 ALCO S4 1950 78,417 retired 1980 to 1057 ALCO S4 1950 78,418 scrapped 1980 to 1058 ALCO S4 1950 78,419 sold 1982 to Bay Colony Railroad 1061 ALCO S4 1950 78,235 ex Delaware and Hudson Railroad purchased 1967 sold 1983 to Bay Colony Railroad 1062 ALCO S4 1950 78,239 ex Delaware and Hudson Railroad purchased 1967 sold 1981 to Fall River Railroad 1063 ALCO S4 1950 78,406 ex Delaware and Hudson Railroad purchased 1968 sold 1983 to Bay Colony Railroad 1081 E&D 1950 13,533 used as a Boston and Maine Railroad mileage equalizer on Boston commuter trains until renumbered Maine Central Railroad in 1956 1082 ALCO RS 11 1956 81,917 renumbered Maine Central Railroad in 1956 1101 ALCO S3 1950 78,300 393 Greater Portland Public Development Commission acquired in 1958 and was the last locomotive to wear PTM paint when sold in 1988. As we progress through this video, let's shift our attention towards footnotes and uncover its hidden depths. Kakari Switching and Terminal Railroads. Kakari Maine Railroads. Kakari Railway Companies established in 1911. Kakari Railway Freight Terminals in the United States. Kakari Funk Companies based in Portland, Maine. Kakari South Portland, Maine. Kakari Boston and Maine Railroad. Kakari predecessors of the Maine Central Railroad. Kakari predecessors of Pan Am Railways. Kakari operating common carrier freight railroads in the United States. Kakari American Companies established in 1911. I hope you learned something new today. Let me know what you found most interesting in the comments below.